Welcome, everyone, to the Errata Sonata. I'm Julian.
Yeah, I was going to say, you gotta start by giving a little context. I'm Ian.
I'm Noah.
There we go. We got a trio again. This is a change of pace.
3 people.
And
Three
right off
people,
the
three
bat,
mics.
Noah said he's going to have to pee at some point in this
He's warned
podcast.
us in advance. He said he had a That's So Raven flash into the future, and he saw himself on the toilet. And he said, I don't know when it's happening. I don't know how it's going to happen. I know I'm going to be in a chef costume and in whiteface. But, like...
And I know I'm not going to be able to hold it.
I can't hold it. That was one of the quotes.
But that's crazy. You don't have to pee currently.
I didn't say I had to pee, and I don't want to talk about how I'm diarrheal on the podcast right now.
What percent full is your pee bar right now? Are you going to get to the point where it's like I use the bathroom or I pee on the street like I'm a sim?
I drank so much water last night after I discovered I wasn't hungry.
Oh my god,
and I
are we
was
talking about
thirsty.
this again? Noah cannot differentiate between being hungry and thirsty.
It's not like I was full, like I was eating food. It's not like I was getting food and then not being able to eat it. So clearly there was space in my tummy.
But it needed to be space that could fill the crevices, the water that's flowing over the rocks.
I needed non-solid food. I needed a
You had a milkshake.
It wasn't enough.
He's got
Milkshakes?
the food stomach, he's got the liquid stomach, and then the dessert
The
stomach.
dessert stomach, obviously.
Well, because I had drank a milkshake in a root beer, but that doesn't really quench your thirst.
No, because it's not water. You
Also,
need to drink water.
I know, but that's why I was saying, I was like, oh, I'm thirsty. Let me get some water. And then it was all good. Also, Ian, for the listeners that don't know this, Ian is a very healthy young man.
Yeah.
Only diet and 0 products in his house.
Well, it's because I did keto for a while, so I just got used to the idea of I don't need sugar as a part of my diet, and I'm worried that if I switch back over to having sugary drinks, it will give me cravings.
As he drinks his iced coffee.
Well, it's sugar-free.
No, it is not.
Yeah.
I get
a sugar-free iced coffee.
you got no simple syrup in it?
Yeah, like I got the sugar-free.
So it just has no sugar in it. Like it's just
It's got a sugar
coffee
substitute.
and cream. Oh, it's like stevia or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Got it.
I think they've been using monk fruit, which is like, it technically still is sugar, but it's just so condensed sweetness that they don't use a material amount of sugar in order to get the sugar tasting.
No, but he only has diet stuff, and that makes my tummy feel weird.
Yeah, because
aspartame.
it doesn't make your stomach feel as full, I think. Like, so like the weight of a diet soda doesn't say you the same way as a regular.
Never had a soda.
You've never had a
A
soda?
pop?
Never.
Oh, I had a Mike's one time.
Are you serious that you've never had
Like,
a soda?
A
No,
Mike's
not a
hard
Mike's. Sorry,
lemonade?
not a Mike's. What are the
Hard lemonade.
Jones.
Jones.
Oh, Jones, yeah.
Jones. I had
You know,
that one time.
my neighbor.
Wait,
so
shut up about your neighbor. What is the circumstances behind never having a pop? Like you just
I don't like carbonated stuff. I tried carbonated water and orange juice when I was a kid.
they're very different.
I don't like the thing that I didn't like was the carbonation.
Because if
I
I
love
drink,
carbonation.
if I
hate
drink
that.
carbonated water, like I gag. I can't drink
Oh my
carbonated
god,
water.
guys, why?
Well, it's
Like to the point that I tried forcing myself to drink it beyond gagging, and I threw up.
yeah.
But pop is not the same.
No, it's not just like I don't like how the carbonation feels in my mouth, but then also afterwards, like I can't stop burping, and it's like it feels like I'm throwing up because I can taste what I drank, and it's disgusting.
When was the last time you tried pop?
The time I had a Jones was on New Year's
Is that your resolution?
to have a pop.
To have a pop, to have
no,
one
it
pop.
was someone gave it to me as a gift.
What flavor was it?
It was
Was it the blue one?
coconut.
Coconut?
The white one? No, it's cream soda.
Yeah,
Cream
it's
soda.
not coconut.
Sorry,
Yeah.
cream soda.
Did you enjoy it?
The flavor is fine. It's good. I like cream soda as like a flavor, but like I cannot stand carbonate.
It still made you uncomfortable after the fact.
I drank maybe a third of it, and I was burping all night, and I thought I was gonna puke.
All right, I have a question then for you. Because I get made to feel weird a lot of the times. Because I just enjoy drinking milk. Are you a milk drinker?
Are you a milk
No, because
haver?
I'm not a milk. I'm not a milky boy. I'm lactose intolerant.
Okay.
You're lactose intolerant. You're soda intolerant.
Well, everyone's
You're
lactose
racially
intolerant.
intolerant. Yeah.
I'm racially intolerant.
No, I
I had a nice dinner at I don't want to say the
Say
restaurant
it. Drop it.
at McBean.
Oh God.
I have to cut that.
No, I won't.
I would have looked that up. I thought it was a restaurant. It was just the name of a place that I drove by, and I was like, "How is that allowed?
Yeah.
Is that for real?"
McBean?
Yeah.
Why would that be bad?
One real slur and one almost slur.
Isn't there like a part missing to that makes it not a slur?
The second one, yeah. The first one is just a slur.
Mick?
Yeah.
It's
MC?
No, MICK.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
anyways.
Okay.
I'm Ian, by the
What?
way. Okay.
No, no.
Okay.
The
No.
audience- The audience is champing at the bit. They can't wait to know. They're saying, "Oh my god, what about Ian's neighbor?" They said, "What's going on with Ian's neighbor?"
I forgot
My-
you were talking
I don't
about
even care what the name
Why
They
is.
did you
didn't
ask
care
about
about-
milk? Shut up
No,
about
yeah.
your neighbor.
We're following the milk train now. Toot toot.
Why did you ask
Alright.
about milk?
Because basically I was trying to get behind, obviously, like, you're a water drinker, but I was wondering if there are other drinks that you have, because like you've got water, but then not everyone drinks water, but you've got water, and that's like your go-to drink.
I think
But
everyone
then-
drinks water. They just like might dilute it with other stuff.
Yeah, but then like maybe you want to have a different drink. You want to like swap it up for your palate. What's your go-to drink there? Because for me, I enjoy milk and chocolate milk like pretty heavily,
And peeing.
and but for a lot of people,
not drinking and just eating instead. If you're thirsty, have a bite to eat.
Taylor, my fiance, hates milk. Like, will not go near it. Won't even put milk in her coffee. She'll put cream in her coffee, but milk, too gross for her.
I can't drink milk alone. But
But if you have some friends over, crack open a couple jugs, see what happens.
no, I can't drink milk by itself.
Okay.
So it has to have a friend.
Okay.
Like cereal or
No, in my coffee.
okay.
But hold on. So you're only a little intolerant.
I mean, everyone's a little intolerant.
Do you eat
right?
ice cream?
I don't think there is there a person in this world that is not in any way intolerant to milk. Really? Are we really going to say that?
Are you
right now?
actually? Is this actually
Aren't
a
we?
stance for you?
Aren't mammals as a species? Don't we develop lactose intolerance once we pass infancy? Isn't that how
I don't
we work?
think it is.
There's
I mean,
levels to it. You can actually see almost like a heat map of the world in their lactose intolerant stages. And generally, Europe is a lot more lactose intolerant than the rest of the world.
Because what is it like? Lactate breaks down lactose in your
Okay.
system, and I thought mammals produce less lactate after you.
So
wait,
here's what I'm gonna say. I am no more lactose intolerant than I am water intolerant.
Well, how do you know that? Have you ever stopped drinking, or have you ever stopped having lactose for a bit and seen what it did to your bowels?
I have an intimate knowledge of my own bowels. 'Cause I'm on medication that helps manage it.
All right, fine. Tell us the stupid
My neighbor?
story.
Oh my god. You can't wait to hear it.
I'd rather
The
talk
audience-
about this than Ian's bowels.
No, I was just gonna say, because we mentioned Jones. My neighbor growing up was the heir to the Jones empire, because her great grandfather essentially started Jones, and they sold it to somebody, and then they still controlled the bottling company that bottled Jones and had an exclusive contract, and that's where apparently all the money is in Jones now, is just in bottling.
So her grandfather
Yeah.
started the business that made the drink and the bottles that the drink goes in,
Yeah, that's my understanding.
and then they sold just the drink part of that.
Or they were some percent shareholder of the drink.
Yeah.
They completely have given up ownership of the drink itself, and they just own the bottling now.
That feels illegal to start a business and to be like, here, you can have half the business, but I'm still going to control
That's
the other half
almost
of the
exactly
business.
how it always works, where they'll be like, I'm going to sign a predatory contract,
Yeah.
and then be like, I'm selling the company with this contract intact, or you could buy me out of this contract by paying an additional price.
Julian, what did your Jones bottle cap say?
What does that mean?
On the inside of every Jones cap,
They
is
say a little thing.
They say a little thing. Did you not read yours? You didn't
No.
get the full Jones experience.
Yeah,
Oh, is that the
go
best
back
part?
in for another one.
Is that the best part about the Jones? Because I hated the drink part of it.
Yeah, that is the best part of the
So
Jones.
not even hold on, this is actually important. Not even just the fact that you burping it up and that feels bad, but the act of it going down the first time you didn't like.
No, I don't like how carbonation feels in my.
See, I love carbonation. And you probably remember that I will drink carbonated water over regular water every chance I get. I used to have tons of Perrier and San Pellegrino, and then at this point now I'm just mostly doing diet soda.
That's because he's a sophisticated little boy.
Because I switched over to diet root beer. That's my sophistication.
Common water? No, thank you, sir.
No, I only drink water. I mean, I have that drink there because my mom gave me like protein drinks.
I was wondering about that. Like it makes it when I saw that, I thought you came from the gym. I was like,
No.
early workout,
No, I
doing
just haven't-
laundry.
No, I just didn't have anything this morning.
I definitely just assumed I saw the brown labeling. I was like, that's a chocolate protein drink. No, it's coffee.
It's coffee.
It's a little chalky
Coffee
milky.
protein.
Coffee, protein drink.
So I guess yeah. Okay, I have coffee and water, and those are the only 2 drinks I ever have.
Coffee and water. Coffee's basically just water.
Put a little. I told you I put a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Just a little
no
bit.
juice. You said you don't like juice.
In your coffee.
I like juice, but like I'll be honest, at my house right now, I don't have.
I'll be honest, I don't have juice either. I think that like
Neither do I. I'm
It's
trying to
too-
establish that
It's too cumbersome.
you have pop in your fridge.
yeah.
He only has water in his fridge.
Well, because pop is, I feel like pop is like a thing where you're like throughout the day or even at night, you're like, I'm gonna have a pop. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna do that with orange juice and apple juice. It's like there's like a specific time of day that you're gonna have
Oh,
juice.
I always want apple juice.
Really, you can like sit on
You
the
can-
couch
yeah,
and watch
you-
a show and have a juice.
You can crush apple juice. The issue is it's like I think that we are I mean, not even I think we're tricked into thinking apple juice and orange juice are healthy, but they're so bad for you.
very sugary.
And you'll just like, well, at its core, you can drink 8 oranges worth of orange juice very, very quickly. You can't eat 8 oranges very, very quickly. So it's like when you convert it into juice form, you're getting rid of all the fiber and you're
Sugar.
extracting all of the sugar.
yeah.
And fruits are sugary.
Fruits are
Yeah.
already sugary. 1 orange is like that's a sugar high.
I used to have a lot of pink lemonade. That was my go-to.
Yeah,
And that is so sugar.
that's
That is
pure sugar.
That is like basically only sugar. So I think it was when I left university, I was like, I have to kick this habit. 'Cause, like my body cannot put up.
Yeah, I was actually just talking about it the other day that I went through maybe a 3-4 year period where I just did not drink any pop. And then more recently I started drinking pop more, and now I'm thinking I would like to stop because I have maybe once a day I'll have a pop, but I feel like I don't want to be having it.
I
once a
have
day.
so much, and it makes me uncomfortable because it was a nicotine patch to help me get off of sugar while I was doing keto, and so it worked for me then. And then I told Julia, now that we're off keto, I'd like to cut diet soda and just like switch over to water. And she's like, well, I need the diet soda, so we're gonna have diet soda in the house. And once it's here, I'm like, well, do I want a regular water or do I want to pour myself crack open a cold one with the boys?
So once again, Julia's the problem.
Julia
the
is the
root of all
problem.
evil in this household.
I've never heard a problem that didn't have to do with Julia. That makes her special.
Oh God, yeah. So Julia has an opinion. Julia
Oh,
has an
God,
interesting
not
opinion.
again.
Yeah, we never want to hear Julia's opinion.
We've been talking about wedding rings because of Noah getting married, and like at some point in the future, me and Julia are presumably going to get married. We've been together 7 years.
You say
And-
presumably like you don't have control over this decision. Like it's not.
It might happen. We'll see what happens.
You're like, I can only assume at some point we will somehow get married. I don't
We'll
know
wake
how
up
we're
one
gonna get
day.
there.
A marriage will occur.
We'll be walking down the street and Mr. Beast will show up and be like, first person to get married gets $1 million.
Damn, the first one. I don't think we could make it in time. That's so easy.
No, you just he'll marry you there. He'll obviously have an officiant. ready
Mr.
to
Beast
go.
will join your thruple right there.
okay. Dude, without a prenup, joining a Mr. Beast throuple in an instant.
Yeah,
It's better than buying Nvidia right now.
That's true.
that's better than buying like anything.
No, Julia and I were talking because I was like, I've got very knobby fingers. And I was like, I don't think I'd enjoy wearing a ring. And so I was like, well, I've always said to myself, maybe if I got married, if it somehow happened, I would get a ring tattooed onto my finger.
Which let me cut in here. I've been talking about how I don't want to wear
A wedding band.
Yeah, and every single person, like I've heard it way too many times, says, "Get it tattooed." Why is that everyone's go-to?
Because it's the thing that will be least obtrusive to your hand. Like it will feel like nothing.
Oh yeah,
there.
getting stabbed by a needle 10,000 times. That's not obtrusive at all.
No, but like it's a one-time event, and then afterwards, it's not like people have like phantom pains in their tattoos, like they're missing a limb. Like, oh, what happened to my epidermis? Like,
You don't know me.
Really? You think you'd be bothered by it?
I don't know, but I just know that I don't want a tattoo. I'm tattoo free.
yeah,
That's
Right.
not like I just like. I mean, I know you can get it laser removed, but I don't like the thought of like, oh, I can't take this off. You know?
Don't get married then. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, you can't take that
You're
off
afraid
either.
by the
I-
thought of things being permanent, but you're getting married.
Yeah,
Ship has sailed.
it's not permanent. What are you talking about? Till death do us part. Easy peasy.
Oh, but you keep the tattoo after you die.
I'm not talking about me dying.
We thought Julia
Like,
was the hated one in this.
yeah,
episode.
damn, I'm learning a lot. Anyway, back to the point. Julia thinks that tattooing a ring to your finger is less special because the only reason a ring matters is because you might lose it. She's like, I want the threat of loss
Okay.
to make it romantic.
I can see where she's coming from.
What? No.
Yeah, because part of
I could lose a finger.
right, but part of having the ring on is like it's not only is it like something to show people that you're like, show your affection physically.
Yeah, I've had sex.
I mean, that's not true.
Technically, legally, no.
But it's also like the responsibility of like I'm always conscious that I'm wearing a ring, like where it is, where I've left it, because it reminds you that you're married and you're always thinking about your spouse, right? It's like if you tattoo it, like sure, it's like yeah, like you're always gonna have like the physical like outwards appearance part of it, but it's kind of like I'm gonna tattoo it and then I can forget about it because I'm never gonna lose it, right?
I guess by that logic, why don't I have a taser that goes off every 20 minutes to remind me of Julia?
I mean, that's the point is you should be thinking about your spouse every 20 minutes.
But
Ian does not
looking
like
down
seeing
at my
the Julia.
hand and seeing a tattoo will remind me as much of Julia as having a ring around my knobby finger rattling around.
Yeah, but it's not just about reminding. It's about, like I said, the responsibility of like having a ring and like taking care of
Well,
it.
I did say to Julia, I said, fine, I will meet you in the middle. I will get a like Lord of the Rings chain around my
Yeah.
neck, and I'll be the ring bearer.
Yeah.
And I'll bear the weight of Julia on my life, and as I slowly have the life drained out of me.
One of my least favorite mechanics in Magic.
What like tempting the ring? Yeah, I know.
I don't like reminder cards. Seriously.
I know.
I don't know what reminder cards are.
But do you know about the tempt the ring mechanics in Magic?
No, is that from the new Lord of the Rings expansion? That they
Yeah.
Okay.
It's something that happens once a turn. Then it basically ticks up a tiered progression system, like your ring bearer, and each tier has a different effect. But it's like on a like you can obviously remember the effects, but it's like not only do I need a reminder card to remind me what each of the 4 tiers of the ring bearer does, but I also need to have the reminder card to remind me what tier I'm on.
Why isn't that just present on the card?
The card, I
Well,
mean,
this is
Magic cards are already essays, but it'll say like at the beginning of your upkeep, the ring tempts you, and they will not be able, like it's a full card of like there's 4.
It's like a
tiers.
little machine
Yeah.
that you're running through the program.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, that's kind of the same issue with all of the sagas.
Well, no, Saga is a dedicated card. Saga, you play a Saga and it sits on the battlefield and it is a permanent you can interact with.
Like
Yeah.
Urza
It's an
Saga.
enchantment.
Oh, so you're
That's
specific.
a land. You
you're-
said the one example that's not an enchantment. It is a permanent, but
So,
yeah.
so the core issue that you have is that the exact rulings are not all there, ready and available on the card.
yeah, like that's what I mean.
Because they've essentially on release turned the tempting the ring mechanic into an evergreen effect that they're like, you guys already know what it is. You don't need reminder deck.
Yeah, like it's not ever. It's only in the Lord of the Rings set, but you're right. Like they can't print everything that it's like. Reading the card doesn't explain the card, I guess, in the Tolarian Academy words. But that mechanic is present in like ring tempting you and like entering the dungeon, or I guess, right,
Yeah.
where you can't follow the effects of the card by reading the card. You have to have a reminder card or like literally remember what
Yeah,
it does.
which especially in permanent formats like Modern is annoying because every additional effect that exists like that, you then need an additional reminder card.
Yes.
We're having that issue right now in, well, not, very, very, very different, but there's a related point. In Digimon right now, that Digimon is requiring that you have tokens available in case your opponent makes tokens on your side of the field.
That's the dumbest thing
Well,
I've ever heard in
it's-
my entire life.
That he's wrong. That's not true.
Oh.
The Fujitsumon. Yeah.
You're not required to have the tokens. If you have a deck that makes tokens,
You need to have it for your opponent.
right?
But if you're playing an
That makes
online tournament,
When he says you need to have it, you don't. You're not going to get in trouble. You're not. There's no world where you get like penalized for not having the token.
But they can be anything that's not a Digimon card. They don't have to be the
no,
card.
like
The-
you could
'cause there are
probably
no
grab a
official
cup of
tokens.
coffee and make that your token.
There are no official tokens for this.
There's
right?
there's print and play tokens.
Oh, there are.
Yeah.
Just for Diaboromon.
There's no Sukamon one.
Sukumon's not even a token.
Because I mean, like, if I went to like an online Magic tournament and my opponent was like, I'm gonna play, like, I'm gonna take the initiative, or like, I'm gonna make your card like the ring bearer or something. I would get disqualified for not having the ring bearer reminder card. I would be pissed. That doesn't make. It's like a specific card, but it's like you can just remember.
Yeah, I mean the core issue is just like in online tournaments where it becomes like a conversation, which unfortunately for Digimon, like the majority of tournaments that we're talking about are online. I actually consider it in my eyes, is a big failure of Digimon God, I fucking hate online tournaments, and I wish that everything was. I don't wish
Well,
everything was in person. I wish we had greater access to in-person relevant tournaments.
I think the bigger issue is specifically Canada. We don't have good TOs to host it. We have Carta, Magica in Ottawa.
Yeah,
That's the only like big TO we have for Canada. And even they've stopped hosting online Digimon tournaments. They're hosting a tournament at Anime North, but it's not like it's not
that's
official.
what I was saying. It's not official. So I was like, I'm probably going to go to Anime North anyways. But here's the other issue. I had a great time at Gen Con. Gen Con was a fantastic experience. I wish the tournament was not during the convention. I don't want to spend convention time at the tournament, and I don't want to, if I'm just going for the tournament, have to pay for entry into the convention. It's like they're two things that are like, I don't think them being tied together is good at all.
Well, it's like not good competitively, but it's for extra entrance, right? It's for padding the pool because a lot of people are going to be at the convention and like be more inclined to casually enter the tournament because they're also at the convention.
Sure, but it's not. It is a notable cost to enter, and also like if you're at the convention already, you want to be at the convention. There's a lot of stuff to do at Anime North.
It's bad for people that are good at the game, and it's good for people that are bad at the game, because a lot of people enter a tournament, go 3 rounds, drop. Now they have something to do. But for the people that are good at the game, they're punished for doing better because they can't go and do those other things. It's similar to side events at these big events.
Yeah.
Like at Nationals, I wanted to enter side events, but because I was in day 2 and I did just well enough to miss the cutoff for signups and then just bad enough to not be able to play anymore, I just kind of had to sit around, which was sad. But that's kind of the nature of the game, right? Like unless you have unless you're extending these events over longer periods of time where you say, all right, we're not going to start side events until this main event's done, but then what's the point of the side event? Right?
Yeah, because the point is to have some kind of simultaneous event running.
And I think there's no getting around that. And that's kind of what conventions bring to the table too, right? Like it sucks because you want to enjoy the convention. The people that drop out or the people that lose early get to go enjoy the convention. But if you're doing better, you don't get to. And that's just either you take away that benefit for the people that are doing bad, or the people that are doing well don't get that benefit.
Yeah.
Or nobody gets that benefit, I guess.
Or everybody suffers.
Yeah. And yeah, I know Ian's a big everybody suffers fan.
Yeah, I do. I fucking love L canceling. What are my other toxic opinions?
You don't like L cancel? I thought you were an
No,
auto L cancel.
I am Mr. ALC, Mr. Worldwide, they call me. And ALC auto L canceling and Smash essentially removes L canceling as a mechanic from Melee and, more importantly, Project M. Project M, there is no part of L canceling that exists that is a decision. In Melee, there's an extremely, extremely, extremely niche scenario, which is versus Ice Climbers. If your attack hits 2 shields, versus hitting 1 shield, it will change the timing of your L cancel. So technically, there is a decision to be made in Melee for L canceling. In Project M, it doesn't exist. It is just a skill test. It is just it is a button that increases APM but does not increase skill expression. And I think that effects like that are meaningless in a competitive environment. And I generally advocate for removing them.
What about the situation where you're about to land with an aerial, and your opponent is using a move that's about to come out, and you say, I might get hit by this move, and if I L cancel, I'm going to be locked out of my L cancel for 60 frames. So I can choose to not L cancel because I'm about to land with an aerial, but I think I'm going to get hit, so I'd rather tech.
That's a fantastic question. Let me tell you why you're wrong.
Okay.
Because L canceling in Melee and in Project M is triggered off of the analog input of hitting L or R, not the digital input. Teching the ground is triggered off of the digital input of hitting L or R. So, if you want to L cancel and not tech, just hit the button slightly less hard.
Roll that back. So do L and R buttons both have 2 sensors in them?
Yes. So they have an analog sensor which goes down to a certain threshold. I actually think it can go down to 100 depression.
Okay.
But the important thing is the function of the digital press does has not been triggered until at the bottom of the analog depression, you click slightly further and you will hear a click, and that is the digital press being activated.
You know what? I guess I knew that because of light shielding.
Yes, exactly.
But I never really thought about The fact that there was a binary switch in there as well as like an analog read.
Yeah, so like it's kind of a finicky thing. There's like a little bit more nuance to it. I think that like in Melee, there's no point in really having the conversation because obviously it cannot change without having to modify the game, which we know has some issues with Nintendo. But in Project M, where the game has existed with modified rules for Melee for a long time, there is no point in holding on to this. I was gonna call it an albatross, but really it's just like the curse of L canceling that we've held on to for so long. So a significant number of Project M scenes have switched off L canceling, and with no real intention of turning it back on.
What did you mean for hitting both of Icy's shields changes the timing? What's the window? 8 frames, 10 frames?
So it's a 7-frame window to L cancel. How it happens is when you hit somebody's shield, you will trigger hit lag, and that will cause you to freeze. With Ice Climbers, you will hit 2 shields. So you'll hit 1 shield first, experience hit lag, then hit the other shield and experience hit lag again, assuming they're slightly off base from one another. When that occurs, we will say, okay, you are going to go through, just for the sake of conversation, 10 frames before landing instead of having 5 frames before landing if you had only hit 1 shield. So your timing of hitting L changes based on the number of objects you are hitting before you hit the ground.
Oh, okay. So it's not like really any different than either hitting one person's shield or like hitting Shy Guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. So it's not like it doesn't like hitting 2 shields doesn't change the actual mechanic.
We're getting too into the nitty gritty, but I will say, again, this is a Project M Melee difference. Project M does not consider hit lag as part of the 7-frame timer. Melee does. So that like also influences it. Where like the difference between whiffing an aerial or hitting someone's shield is identical timing in Project M, whereas in Melee there are minute differences. It usually doesn't matter, especially because there is no lockout. You could cover both by hitting L cancel twice as you're like landing, which is a valid option, but is obviously like a further increase of APM, again, for no real change in skill expression. Anyways, I hope everyone was invested in minute details of Melee and Project M rule sets.
I have already expressed that I'm not a fan of reducing APM just for the sake of reducing.
Yeah, because you're having this issue with World of Warcraft, right?
You don't like reducing APM for what?
For the sake of reducing it.
Right,
So
but that's
you
not
played
that's not the
WoW,
sake.
right?
I play Final Fantasy 14. I've played a little bit.
You
I have a
know
raid today.
the mage ability Time Warp.
Yes.
Hold on, were you in a raid before you came over here?
After.
Okay, good. Because I was gonna say, if you told me you were doing laundry, and if I find out that you were fucking raiding,
Oh,
Dude,
raiding
no
takes
way
like
he
2
was
hours.
raiding,
Raiding
yeah.
takes like 2 hours.
you can do a 6 a.m. raid.
Okay.
Fucking Japan servers.
Time Warp increases your haste by like I think it's 40%, 30 or 40%. They are adjusting a mage ability, a talent that was called Temporal Warp, which basically Time Warp is a 10-minute cooldown, increases your haste. It lets you put out abilities at a much higher speed, which is fun. You get to press more buttons. That's fun. Temporal Warp said you can ignore the debuff that you get that lets you not get this haste buff again for 10 minutes. So that you can Time Warp is on a 5-minute cooldown. You get a debuff that says you can't use you can't gain this benefit for 10 minutes. So it basically lets mages use it every 5 minutes. There are a couple problems around this, mainly being that because when you use it, it affects your whole raid party or your whole party. If you're not using it right away, you're suffering. Because ideally, as a mage, you're using it on cooldown. But because it affects everyone, if it's not more beneficial to use it right away, it's detrimental to you. But what bothers me, that's fine. Sure, let's say that that's the reason. What bothers me is they're saying when you have it, it increases the level of APM that you want to use to have optimal
Lines.
DPS.
Yeah.
And they don't like that. I'm like, that sucks. The best part of the game is when you have high haste and you get to click a lot of buttons. I don't want to just be like pressing 1 or 2 every like.
Yeah, you want to be like a virtuoso. You want to be like constantly like bouncing between your cooldowns. Like,
Yeah, I want to see abilities flying. I don't want to be like, okay, Frostbolt. All right, 1 second, Frostbolt. All right, 1 second, Frostbolt Flurry. Okay, cool, Ice Lance. And then it's like, it's so boring as opposed to like you're playing a piano on the keyboard, you know? And that's I found MMOs kind of trending that way. It's
Yeah.
just like dumbing it down to the lowest common denominator, which was the first thing I brought up. I said, why do games have to always cater towards lowest common denominator? And Mark said, why are you mad that they're catering towards you? Which is fine. I'm not up there in the WoW player base, but once you start catering towards lowest common denominator, you remove that ability for the bad people to push for something, right? Like you remove those goals because it's like you don't actually have to work towards anything.
I think that even if you're not great, you want to have some kind of measurable growth and be able to say, okay, I can play better and therefore perform better. And if the game is saying like, oh, the skill ceiling is so low that like low level players are already reaching it, there's really nowhere to go up except for getting better gear. And that's a little bit disappointing.
But I think what we were kind of getting at was when you lower APM, it's not really, I don't think it's always for just the sake of lowering APM and like making the game dumber. I think a lot of times, like I'm thinking about right now in Guilty Gear, like changing Happy Chaos to have quick, easy inputs.
Yeah.
It's because he was quite literally killing people's hands.
Yes.
And
fighting games are a little bit
Yeah.
more intensive for APM, or I won't say APM, but like buttons per minute, compared to a lot of the games we're referring to, like MMOs.
Well, Melee
Kills people's hands.
well, a big part of it is specifically wrists, right? It's
wrist,
not as much
well,
your-
no. So it's also the essentially like where your fingers meet your where your finger bones meet each other. You're essentially wearing down the connective points, and then if you wear it down enough, you're just rubbing bone on bone.
Boom.
Yeah.
So it's like that's like the core issue is that like every part of your hand, if it's doing the same repetitive motion, you're wearing away at a specific connection point between fingers, and eventually you just go, well, every time you do it, it's gonna hurt.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, like, if you're using like the standard GameCube controller, you're not using like your pinky and your
No, so that's why
ring.
I use a smash box to try and distribute the weight across my whole hand of having high APM gameplay. But at the end of the day, all gaming is going to have some extent of, I don't want to say damage on the hands, but like you just have to recognize that like high APM is an abnormal activity. Your hands are not meant to have like that much repetitive motion. And you are going to have wear downs. And that's part of why in fighting games, probably in MMOs, probably in fucking every game, hey guys, maybe do some hand stretches and exercise. Like it's kind of important. I was going
look
to
away from the screen every 20 minutes.
well, I was gonna say I went to a massage therapist, and one of the things that he told me is like, wow, your forearms, you're not like, I'm not that muscular. I don't want to make it sound like anything I'm not, but like your forearms have so much fucking tension. Stop gaming. Like, what are you doing?
He went into the doctors and he was like, "Man, you're D's."
You could tell you were a gamer
Yeah.
instantly by touching your forearm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think well, I mean like the boxes, the amount of movement that you do in your fingers is significantly less than a GameCube controller, right? I'm
Yes.
thinking about like my thumb when I play like,
Your thumb goes crazy on
Yeah.
GameCube. And
Even
it's
the
also
triggers.
it also needs to be very precise. Also, you're holding your hands in a very precise position, which is
Yeah.
like curled in, which is technically slightly curled in is the natural hand shape. It's like flat is not natural, slightly curled is natural. The issue with the GameCube controller is that it's significantly curled. So like you're actually actuating in a pretty high curled state.
I just so off topic, but like
Okay.
I just found out about, I don't remember the term for it, but basically
Being cringe.
everything returning to crab. It's called like not carcinization, something along those lines.
Okay.
Where basically, this theory is that a lot of crustaceans that aren't crabs are now like the king crab, for example.
Yeah.
Wasn't originally a crab, but it evolved to crab because it's the superior shape. And I was just thinking when you said like your resting position is slightly curled, I'm like, we're going to crabs, baby.
you think one day our exoskeletons will form and we'll start clipping and clapping around?
Yeah. I don't know, someone at work was telling me about this and I read it. I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever read ever. Like, no way, dude. Oh my goodness. Is it just like, you know what? Everyone is going to crab. It's the optimal.
Well, I actually think the bigger commentary to be had is that we have irreparably changed evolution to the point that like what would take millions of years of natural breeding, we are achieving in hundreds of years. And what humans want animals to look like and do and taste like and like their brain function is essentially just being bred in our direction. So when you say everything is becoming crab, that only happens if the crab prices are skyrocketing and Alaskan king crab is just on the rise.
It's already skyrocketed, right?
It is high.
It's
Crabs compared to 200 years ago are wildly expensive because like they were not considered a rich person food before. But they are pretty pricey now.
Now they have king in front of their name.
Now they have King, like Stephen King. How much would it cost to eat them?
That's king behind his name. That's different.
Oh, that's what does it, eh?
The surname. When you have king as your first name, that's
that you're a baller if King's your first name.
Yeah.
Please, if anyone is named King, let us know.
Tell me when Freddie King Jr. is born.
with a Z still somehow. Right? Isn't
Yeah,
that pretty-
Kings.
Yeah.
All right, there was something we wanted to talk about today.
Yeah.
We were getting so close to it.
Was it cats?
No. It was, oh my God.
No, it wasn't.
I mean, can we
cats.
say that for next episode?
Okay, we'll save it. No more cats.
I'm
to
still
mute.
burned. I feel like that's the only thing getting me through this episode is the burning desire to hear the end of that story. And if
Yeah,
I
you
hear
told 85% of the story.
Yeah.
And then we said, wait, podcast.
I'll put it on the podcast.
if I hear the end of it, I'm just gonna leave. It's
All
gonna
right.
make me too
Okay,
upset.
what did you want to talk about, Noah?
What did Julian want to talk about?
No, what do you want to talk about? Julian, what did Noah want to talk about?
All right. No one wanted to talk about what I wanted to talk
Oh,
about.
perfect. What do you want to talk about?
I wanted to talk about downplaying.
Down batting?
We
Wait, I think I made that joke
You
already.
already made that joke. That's why I didn't laugh.
But you know what? It was funny. If you were listening before the recording, oh, we laughed, we hollered.
Here's the thing with Ian. First of all, I did not holler. Ian's stories, exceptionally funny a lot of the time. Ian's jokes, garbage.
They're so funny.
They're not funny. His jokes just always not funny. But his stories, excellent.
You need to find a way to convert all your jokes into a story.
So I was telling this joke. All right. So what's this downplaying you want to talk about?
I wanted to talk about, well, you asked me what I wanted to talk about for the podcast. And I was thinking, because Yellow Vaccine has been getting a lot more representation than it was when I started to build the deck, my immediate thought was, that's great. I'm going to have a lot more eyes on the deck that I'm interested in, and it's going to get a lot more optimization. And me as a new player is going to have more resources to build a better version of that deck.
Yeah, there'll be definitely be a lot more resources and conversation about it. But that said, I often fall on the opposite end of the spectrum because I go, Nuemon, really cool. But a lot of people are playing it, and that kind of makes me want to play it less. The moment I heard Noah say at the start of today that Leviamon has not been topping in a while. And I was immediately like, maybe I should build Leviamon.
I need to show these kids.
Ian's an edgelord.
Ian is an edgelord.
I want to come 17th and never higher because if I come top 16, my deck has come top 16 and I can't play it anymore.
Well, I
No,
think-
but that's the best thing.
I know piloting a deck that's outside of top 16 contention into top 16. Nothing would ever feel better. I agree. Obviously.
And then you retire it and you try again with a new deck.
yeah.
And Noah said the same thing. Like, we saw a deck list, and as soon as we pulled it up, Noah sighed. He went, ugh, I want it to be the one.
Oh, that's right with
to top
Gabu
of this
Bond.
deck.
With Bond of Friendship. And first of all, I like that deck list a lot. It's different than mine because I like to focus on the hybrid package a little bit more. But I thought that deck list was pretty good. Looking at that deck list does not solve the issues that I had with mine, which is if you face Mirage, you are going to lose. And again, that kind of falls into what you're saying about downplaying. Like, did this guy get lucky and just make it through? And I think that Digimon is kind of in that state right now. We've mentioned matchup roulette before, but a lot of the decks in Digimon right now have pretty good matchups and then like one or two polarizing matchup. Like Numemon into Deva or Deva into like Mirage or Blue Flare. Like these are just not great matchups for them. And you just kind of have to hope to avoid them to make it through. And I think the Bond of Friendship probably just avoided Mirage, which is, I mean, that happens. I don't face Mirage every time I play.
Yeah.
I face Mirage every time I play Blue Flare or Bond of Friendship when I say I don't want to face Mirage. But I don't want to downplay it. Super cool that topped. But yes, I was the one. I wanted to be the one to get top
To
16.
pilot it to
Yeah.
victory.
Speaking of downplaying, Bond of Friendship got top 16 an EU tournament. It wasn't like an official tournament, but they also got top 16. Downplayed the hell out of that because it's for you. It's like anytime I see EU results, I downplay them. And I think I want to make it clear that downplaying happens, but it doesn't always just happen because of ego. Like sometimes there's a reason that you're saying this is less.
Like sometimes you're just adding context, is what you're saying.
Yes. Like,
and like that's not a bad thing.
Like almost every time I see EU results or Latin America or Oceania, Japan, there's a little asterisk beside it for me because it didn't happen in NA. And I think that NA is probably the best region for like tournament data, especially for me because I play in NA, but also just for what?
There's some, let's just put it the way it is. LATAM tournaments sometimes have some fucking whack topping decks.
Well, Galantmon topped in a tournament in EU like a month ago.
Okay.
Should that have happened?
Probably not.
No. Could Galantmon top in that same meta here? Even with perfect matchup roulette? Still probably not.
Well, so here's the thing. It could, because I was just saying to Noah yesterday, this will date us. I watched a video recently, which is the worst decks to top in Magic tournaments. And just talking about fucking random vanilla spiders topping just because, like, you know, you won the roulette, you top decked what you needed. So it happens. I think that, like, there is a rule of numbers. Eventually you are going to get like somebody just floating to the top that doesn't deserve to be there necessarily. That said, I get what you're expressing. You're expressing is like, it seems like we get a lot more floaters in EU and LATAM than we do in North America. And that's probably because of a very different scene than we have.
Yeah. And I think that generally my thought process is that if every tournament was open, if NA players were floating into EU tournaments and vice versa, you'd probably see a lot of NA players topping EU tournaments and not so much EU players topping.
Well,
NA.
I mean, here's my pitch. That might happen, and I don't actually have thoughts about whether it will or won't. But what I will say is it would be great for it to happen, and then we go, okay, now let's see those scenes improve, and let's see the change in the meta over time.
Yeah.
Because that's what I really expect would happen, and that would feel fantastic if we could say that.
I think I've brought this up on the podcast before. Very early on in
Okay.
Digimon webcam tournaments life, you could enter in any tournament. You had to have a valid
Passport.
address for it to be mailed to you. But earlier on in Digimon, Hack, which was the Oceania tournament organizer, hosted a tournament, and a lot of NA players had PO boxes over there, and they entered the tournament. And I think 8 to 10 of the top 16 were NA players.
They set up a PO box just to enter Oceania tournaments?
Yeah. And 8 to 10 of the top 16 were NA players. I think first and maybe second were NA players.
I would assume it would. I mean, that's probably a little bit of confirmation bias that only good players who expected to place well would go through the trouble of setting up a PO box to enter an Oceania tournament.
But immediately after, there was so much uproar that they said, all right, from now on, you are confined to your region. You're not allowed to go and enter in. But and that's the thing. You're right. Only the players that are, because it's a whole time difference, right? Like Oceania is a very big difference in time.
Yeah, but if you're a gamer, you're a gamer up at 4 a.m.
But you're right. The better players will. But that's just confirmation bias in general. Like the better players will play in almost all the tournaments. That's why you'll see them top more often than players that don't care as much or don't try as hard. So yes, like kind of confirmation bias, but also that's just card games in general. That's how results are going to work, right? The people that are putting in more time and more effort into these are going to top more. And I think that if we were open like that again, you would see that same scenario with EU and NA, because it would still be like EU tournaments in general are smaller. They don't have as many people signing up. If it was open NA, they'd be filling up these tournaments. And like you said, the better players that want to be in them are more likely to be in. And then there might be some overflow of like less good players like me. I still think you'd see like probably half at least of top 16 NA, even with a much smaller ratio compared to like if it was mostly EU players. And then they said, okay, all the EU players that wanted to sign up signed up. Now we're opening it up to NA. I still think that even with a smaller amount of NA players, you'd still see like those people rising to the top.
Are there any really good players who you know are good, but they'll play a deck that you know is strong, and they'll be like, yeah, this deck's not that good?
Oh, like people who are like just they have like they're good players, but they have a false perception on the quality on a specific deck.
Yes.
Well, I think I'm going to talk mostly in our local sense because I definitely exist within that sphere. I think that most frequently happens. I'm sorry, Noah. We've been attempting to say the words less, but it happens very frequently with red hybrid players where they will downplay their own decks, which is very frequently what happens. Like, oh, this is a deck. It's a lot of skill to play. You know, there's a lot of interesting dynamics that happen. There's so many different ways you can build it. Is there? Seems like I took every hybrid card that was in the red category, that was red, slapped it together and turned sideways.
And do you really think it's like? Because I think this happens in basically every competitive scene.
Yeah.
And do you think it happens? Like, is it easy to just chalk it up like purely as ego, or do you think
I think it is largely ego because like I'll touch on melee again quickly and say almost every melee player will refuse the idea that their character is the top character in the game. And that happens at a national level and that happens at a local level. Everybody wants to say, you know, my character's top 8, but my character's definitely not top 1. And eventually there's only
right,
8.
Though?
Sorry?
Aren't they right though? Unless they're playing Fox. Like,
so, God, this is
does Cody think Fox is number 1?
This is a complicated conversation, but like right now, the current appreciation of the game is that in terms of quality of character alone, we're having conversations around Marth, we're having conversations around Fox, we're having conversations around Sheik, which is like Sheik's big growth in presence and like appreciation.
It's a renaissance right now.
Yeah, people are really, really on Sheik right now. I think everyone who's not named Leffen has accepted that Jigglypuff is not top in the world. But
he does it in Strive too. It's so annoying. He called Chaos bottom 8 a couple.
Yeah, so this is what I'm saying.
Well,
so maybe Leffen's a good example of somebody who downplays.
Oh, God,
but he's extremely good at the game.
Oh my God, he's so good. He won Evo.
Yeah,
he won Evo in Melee and in Strive.
But
what a flex!
So then,
and Fate Unlimited codes.
Oh yeah.
So then you have to say like, is this person a genius and he just sees the one thing that
he is.
nobody else sees,
Yeah.
or is he just wrong? Because guess what? Good players can still be wrong.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say is like, is being so good at a game, does it really open you up to like knowledge about the game that like nobody else can understand? And like, I think in some regards, yes, but I also think that a large part of it is ego. And I mean, Leffen specifically has shown pretty clearly through.
I'm pretty sure his famous quote is half Swedish, half Korean, the perfect gamer DNA.
I don't know where Swedish comes into this.
What is he? He's
yeah, he is half Swedish.
Yeah,
but I don't know why that.
I don't
why
know.
Swedish.
Every time I think of
Swedish.
Did you ever, for our audience, if you've ever played Xenoblade, it's about unlocking the perfect genome DNA of the High Entia by mixing human and High Entian.
Right.
So maybe that's it. Maybe it's just that Korean DNA needs to be synthesized by diluting it the perfect amount.
Well, Xenoblade, it's like it's got a positive correlation with breast size as well.
Oh, of course, obviously.
So I don't know if Leffen could grow a pair, then
if he could grow a pair, is that what you said?
Okay, but what we're talking about is you were specifically talking about red hybrid players downplaying it.
Yeah,
I think that you were talking about Julian was talking about good players downplaying. I think that there's a correlation between your skill level and downplaying because I think downplaying happens less, at least in Digimon with my experience, with better players. I think Digimon players, at least the better ones, are more willing to recognize when their deck is overtuned.
Yeah, I think there is definitely that correlation. Like the better you are, you tend to downplay less. We're definitely cherry picking when we talk about Leffen. Because at the end of the day, if I'm actually just focused on winning, I am probably going to need an honest and accurate assessment of what is the deck that is most likeliest to take me to victory.
Yeah, because if you are a true competitor and you want to win, you have to remove bias. And so that includes removing I like this deck, but I don't think it's that good, even though it might be the best deck. you know? And this is what we're talking about right now is separate from what I did with Anubis, where I said, I like this deck, but it's not, I wasn't saying it's not that good. I was saying it's not right for me.
Yeah.
Which is different than saying, oh, I like Numamon, but I think it's kind of a jank deck. It's
Presumably, Pete was not throwing by playing security control, even though there was more representation of Levia in top 4 of Worlds
right.
than security control. Because it is the deck that he was able to pilot better to achieve victory.
Right.
Yeah,
But I don't think Pete is saying like security control is not that good. I'm just like god tier player. You know, like security control is a good deck.
And he was good at piloting it.
Right. And so I think the better you are, the less likely you are to downplay a deck.
That's fair. Yeah, because I do think that comes into play. I think it can still happen. I think it's just kind of inherent to. So, like, one of the reasons why I play fighting games as opposed to MOBAs or a lot of team-based games is I find that there's a lot of ego protection that comes from, oh, my teammates were just bad. Yeah, exactly. Like, they lost bot lane, and that's why we lost. And I'm like, well, sure, but I want to be rewarded for myself doing good, and I want to be able to sort of, like, assess my own game plan. And I think that team games can obfuscate that a bit. I think in the same way, card games obfuscate skill expression through its randomization mechanics and through just high variance activities like revealing security. Revealing security is huge variance in terms of like how a match is going to go. We played a match yesterday that was a wash. It was over. And then you hit a bomb in security and it completely turned the game around. I'm like, well,
yeah, it was my very last security check, and it hit one of your overflow guys and
stole turn.
It stole turn, and then I just won off of that. And yeah, that happens a lot of times when I play tournament. I'll do like one check, and it's huge for them. And I think, please let me have something in my security to swing it back in my favor.
Reward me in turn.
Yeah, no, it doesn't happen, and then it's like, all right, the game's over off of this like security check. I played. It was weeks ago. I played in a tournament. I don't know if I've talked about it on podcast. It was against Yellow Vaccine, and I hit a Emissary of Hope.
Okay.
And they played out a Patamon. I was playing Blue Flare. I had frozen his board. He played out a Patamon. Patamon started main, digivolves into Rapidbon. Rapidbon digivolves into MirageGaogamon. I'm like, cool. That was off of one security check. Now he's got a Mega on board, and my board's locked down. Just a complete swing off of one security check. And then obviously my security didn't have that same swinginess for me. And so, yeah, I definitely agree that security can just be huge swings. And at best, you can hope for your security to swing it back in your favor afterwards. But, I mean, for most decks that aren't security control, can't really rely on that ever.
No. So, I mean, that's what I'm saying, though. Like, that high variance impact, it makes people want to say, even if they have a good assessment of the game, an individual match, they would assess it and go, well, I lost because of that security. So it's like, it can prevent people from improving because they have that excuse of this is why I lost. And I think it builds patterns because at the end of the day, security control is running a lot of bombs. You are more likely to hit something and go, oh, shoot, I lost because they had a chaos degrade in security. And then people use that as a reason to hate on security control. But obviously, they're running 4 chaos degrades for a reason. And they're adding a lot of cards to security for a reason. Like, you gotta accept that these bombs are gonna come up. And I think that happens in most decks. Like, if you hit a Leviamon Biting Crush in security, it's like, well, yeah, they're running Biting Crush. That's like a card that you have to control for, and you have to accept. And you're gonna just lose games to it. And it doesn't mean you're a worse player. And it doesn't mean your deck is bad. It doesn't mean their deck is bad. It just is a thing that is going to happen, and it's baked into the game's core DNA. Or Dino DNA, as we would say.
That's why I always have a Zudomon and a Mirage in security.
Yeah.
Because I run 4 of them. They're always in security, at least one of them.
How much do you think people actually account for? I don't know if we have time to get in.
We can talk about it. It's okay.
How much do you think people actually account for security when they're playing? Like, obviously, I think better players are going to do it more.
They try to. I mean, a lot of the time, people will actually say, especially at local level, they'll talk through like what they're scared of hitting as they're sort of like thinking about turning sideways. Because at the end of the day, their cards are all on the table. So they're often like, okay, well, if I swing and I hit this, this happens. If I swing and I hit this, this happens. So like, I think everyone wants to think it through. The issue is that accounting for security bombs or even just security effects often requires you to think through things an action or two before you actually think about attacking. And that's the big issue, is that a lot of people go, well, this is the board state. I have nothing I could do. Either I turn sideways or I don't. And therefore, I'm just going to turn sideways and hope it's not a bomb. What they probably need to do is at the deck building stage, try and include more ability to work around security. At the game turns phase, try and find more ways to say, hey, if you got a hybrid, that's a great thing to help control around security bombs because it is protected until you go into it. If you have a Gazimon in hand, spending the memory to get it on field would really help you to mitigate Jack Raids and Hammer Sparks and the like. So I think people do think it through. I just think they don't think it through early enough. My answer.
I think, well, I mean, what I'm experiencing right now is I feel like if I were to get good enough at the game where I know a lot of the cards, I feel like I would have to swing into this. Like right now, I'm not really caring that much about what's in security. I'm more focused on like what's on my board. And then I think if I get enough knowledge about the game, I might swing in the opposite direction and be too scared of stuff that's in security.
That is my fatal flaw. I definitely have a lot of turns where I go, I don't want to risk it, so I'm just not going to turn. I controlled the board, but I'm like, I don't want to turn sideways yet.
And I think there's like a sweet spot. I mean, I see this a lot in chess, and I experience it in Pokemon, where it's like you're not really like, you don't have the calculations going in your mind of like every possible thing that could happen, but you have a feeling of a play, and you just say, this feels winning. And you see that a lot with like top chess players, where like they don't really have like the exact line played out, but they're like, this move feels winning, and then they just go for it type of thing,
yeah.
Right? And I feel like card games, because they're high variance, it's a lot harder to get to that point, but it does feel like a concept that can apply.
It's an interesting concept because I think the better players, this feels winning, is like a lot of times a winning line.
Mm-hmm.
But worse players, this feels winning. A lot of times it's just the obvious play that seems like it's going to be winning for them, and it's losing because they've done that, right?
Well, I'm trying to say that like worse players will say that because they think of a hyper specific line. They're like, if I do this, this happens and this happens and this happens, and they can translate it 1-to-1 with like, I'm going to win the game because this exact scenario of things is going to happen.
Yep.
I'm saying that top players have no idea what's going to happen. Like they can't pinpoint a specific line of play that's going to happen. They're just saying this feels winning in general because there's so many possibilities of what could happen.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen, but it feels overall winning.
Yeah, like it feels like it'll cover a lot more scenarios,
Right.
rather than covering like a hyper specific scenario.
Right.
It's kind of like, it's basically like safer options in like a fighting game, right? Where you cover X, Y, Z, Q.
Sure.
You know, instead of saying like really putting all your chips on, he's gonna do X.
Right.
Yeah, like, and that in fighting games, that comes into a conversation of, do I have a read on my opponent? If I've learned his habits, I can bet it all on black, instead of having to like, play the field and block everything at once. But it's a risky decision, and like the skill expression that's expressed in fighting games is just so different from card games because you don't have access to all your tools at once, and it's not an open information game. I will say, I'm going to provide an example that I want to get your guys' take on, because it happened to me yesterday. I've been saying I wanted to play Mirage, so I picked up Noah's Mirage deck. He said, "Be careful with my alt arts." He made me shuffle very carefully. He wouldn't let me take my own cards off the top of the deck. Whatever.
Kept licking them. That's weird.
So they don't stick. You gotta get lubricants in there.
I had an awful opening hand, and I looked down at it, and I said to myself, well, one of these plays, if I get the right top deck, will save me. And one of these plays is still bad, but it's slightly better and less relies on the variance. So I'll explain the situation. Noah put me to 3 by playing a rookie to field with an Ukomon in the back. Or playing I think it was a rookie to field. He was playing Numemon.
It was probably level 4.
That's what I was thinking. It probably was the Numemon, but I wasn't going to get into it. And so he put a Numemon and an Ukomon in the back. And so I was at 3, and I looked at my hand, and I had 3 champions. I had an ultimate, and I had a Thomas. And the Thomas's on play was draw 1. And then I think my top deck, because I went second, was a Mirage. So I was like, I have the line, but not the rookie. I can play the Thomas and draw 1 right now and keep turn. And if I get the rookie, I'm back in the game. I can start to come back from this. Or I can commit to the fact that I don't have a Thomas, play the champion to field, and hope it can survive, and try and come back by building up and getting those draws. I think that neither situation was good. Let's start there. It's a bad hand.
Yeah.
But something that happens is that people will go, if I get the rookie, I will come back from this. Therefore, I'm going to draw 1 right now. I'm going to heart of the cards it. And if you do that, your only options are to pass turn or put your opponent to 5 with your next action. The next card was another ultimate, by the way. And I eventually, once I got that draw, I was like, thank God I did not fish for it. I guess I'm presenting this scenario just to be like, this happens. It sucks. It's going to happen to you.
It doesn't mean your deck is bad.
It doesn't mean your deck is bad. Mirages did not become worse because I had a bad hand.
Yeah, so
because I was
don't
in a bad opening situation.
don't downplay the deck because you like bad draws or like misplays, you know? And that's why
Yeah, even if I did play the Thomas, it does not mean that Mirage was any different. That was a choice I made.
Yeah. And that's why I say like in general lower skill players will downplay the decks because they're like, I'm not getting results with it. So ergo, this deck, no good. You know, like this deck isn't that good because I don't do that well with it. And this isn't even really a card game skill. It's just more of like a life skill where you kind of look around and other people are performing well and you're not. And instead of saying, all right, well, what's different? Like, what can I improve? You say like, all right, well, my situation is just bad, you know? So instead of saying like, this deck is just bad, say, what can I do to make this deck perform better? Because I'm seeing other people perform with it. I don't know what to say to people that say like, mid BT13 meta, yeah, Shine's not that good. When it was clearly like extremely good. Because it wasn't getting all 16 of the top 16 slots. They're like, oh, it's not that good. But I think that, because I would like to like wrap up this downplaying thing. And Julian wanted to bring it up. Was there a particular reason that you wanted to talk about downplaying? Or is it more just because you were excited about yellow vaccine? We saw almost no yellow vaccine results, and now it's starting to pick up again. Do you think it was just initially downplayed and it prevented people from playing the deck? Or do you think people are going to be downplaying it now because it's starting to top, but for so long it did poorly? And so people are going to say, oh, this is just a fluke?
Yeah, I think before, the reason I wanted to bring it up was because it had a surge in popularity. I think a big reason, don't get me wrong, is the Angemon Aces. I think that is a big reason that it's got more results right now. But I don't think the deck was that bad before. I mean, like, I obviously am not very good at the game and like I don't play in tournaments, but the reason I was attracted to the deck is because it felt very mid-rangey and it felt like a jack of all trades that could go a little more aggressive when it needed to, and it could be a lot more defensive if it needed to. And that feels like those just types of decks just have good matchup spreads in any card game, right? And it felt like the deck was a lot more versatile than I saw online. I definitely didn't see as many results with the deck. Like whenever we would go onto Eggman events or whatever to look for lists, for me, I wasn't really seeing a whole lot of yellow vaccine to choose from. It would the same one list that would like occasionally pop up, and it was like almost always the same guy just playing it and coming 16th or something, right? And I didn't feel like the deck was that bad. Even like playing it against,
it felt good. Like we never really felt like it was suffering.
No, there was always opportunity. Like even playing against you, there were some times where I would have a good hand, and the deck just kind of played itself, and it would just establish like an unlosable board state type of thing. And of course, that can happen with any deck, but it definitely felt like it would happen often enough to be a good deck in my. So I think people were like, I do think people were downplaying it before for one reason or another. Maybe it's just because it's not the flashiest deck ever, but I don't know. That's why I was curious about what you guys thought about.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think we will see it definitely having a little bit more presence for what's left of BT15. We we definitely have a future for that Patamon, which is going to be coming out. So that Patamon's not going anywhere. We're going to see it in Magnamon X making some appearances.
Yeah. Well, I think to talk about yellow vaccine, I think a lot of decks at the local level get downplayed, and I think a lot of decks at the local level get what would be upplayed.
What's up play?
They're both ego, right? Where it's like you upplay something because you're like, oh, this deck, I think this deck is better than people are giving it credit for. I'm going to be the one.
I'm the guy. I'm the one who discovered it.
Exactly.
Well, see, what I was considering was more like this deck is very good against my deck. And so to me, it feels like it's much better than people are giving it credit for, when it's really not, but you just happen to kind of getting trounced by it. You know?
At the end of the day, if you are a grappler main, wow, zoners are broken. What happened? They're crazy.
Yeah, and so like Sorai, oh man, if you're a Shine Greymon player, Sorai's way overtuned. We gotta get rid of this card, you know? But it's like, Sorai doesn't do a lot against a lot of the other decks. It's mostly just shutting down your Marcuses. And so I think when it comes down to it, at a local level, you're going to see downplaying and like upplaying happen a lot more. And then as you get into like wider audience and a bigger sample size, it kind of a lot of times it kind of balances out and you get a better idea of.
I think that's fair. At the end of the day, you could have a local meta which is way different than the national meta. And that's okay. Build for your local meta, play for your local meta. But at the end of the day, the reason why we go back to national level or world's level metas is because that's where there is this huge population size. That's where the cream really can rise to the top. And population number of a tournament is one of the biggest determining factors for how much I'm going to respect the results.
Let me give the best example of downplaying, the best personal example of downplaying.
Okay.
BT6 Nationals. I was out here struggling to beat Ian while he played Dioboromon and I played Bond of Friendship. And everyone downplayed the deck to me. I kept asking online.
Dioboromon?
Yeah.
For your sake, Dioboromon tokens are level 6s. Bond of Friendship has the ability to bounce level 5s or below to bottom of deck.
And Dioboromon EX1 would make them all blockers.
So I had a bunch of chump blockers. I said, either swing your rookies, I'll block them, or turn into a big guy and I'll chump block them with tokens that I don't care about.
Yeah.
And I kept asking for help, and people said, "Oh, you're much faster than them. You'll outpace them. It's not a very good deck." Guess what? A good amount of Dioboromons, I think at least 3 to 4, were topped at Nationals.
Yep.
And before this, you didn't really see much Dioboromon. It had a good matchup into the deck, and people downplayed the deck because either they didn't understand it, they didn't see it, but that was a frustrating time for me because I wanted to try and figure this out. I wanted to prep for Nationals, and everyone was downplaying Dioboromon as a deck.
Yeah. I love that story. I love vindication stories.
Yeah.
I have a very similar one really quickly. In Guilty Gear, in Season 3, they announced a new mechanic called Wild Assault.
Yes.
So you know this. So this is just a new mechanic. Every character got a Wild Assault. They're slightly different between classes of character. And so when this move first came out, everyone gets this move. I was on day one playing against a friend, and I said, wow, this character, Potemkin, this character's Wild Assault is crazy good. And Potemkin, just so you know, at the time was considered bottom 1, I think, at the time. Like, he was the worst character in the game. But I was like, his Wild Assault specifically is crazy good. And I went onto the Discord. First mistake. Don't ever go onto a fighting game general Discord. Don't ever do that. And I went into my character-specific channel. So, like, everyone in my channel plays my character. And I said, hey, guys, I know it's day one, but what are we doing about Potemkin Wild Assault? It feels good, and I don't know how to beat it. Anyone have any advice? And basically, long story short, everyone was wrong. People had either not played the game yet and were giving advice like from the sidelines and had not played it. They were wrong about the frame data or like just wrong in general about the move. And they were just kind of playing it down to like, oh, Potemkin's a bad character.
You don't need to worry about him.
Yeah, you should be fine. Or it was like, and like they were just bringing up like matchup spread stuff. And I was like, okay, but this is day one of a new season. You're bringing up matchup stats from last season, right? Long story short, everyone was wrong. And within the week, every pro had posted a video called White Wild Assault or like Potemkin's Wild Assault and why it's the biggest mistake they've ever made in this game, why it's overpowered, why it's broken, and why you can't do anything about it. And I was vindicated when I heard that.
Yeah.
I'm constantly upset when I go to ask for advice online because like you get a bunch of people love to share advice and their opinions on stuff that they're not like qualified or they don't have any like backup for it, you know?
Yeah.
So like people are saying, "Oh, I have evidence that Potemkin's not that good." Well, guess what? It's a new season. The game's changed, you know? It's a new meta in Digimon. We can't say that this deck wasn't good before, so it's not good now.
Yeah, I mean that's also exactly we talked about this earlier, but people hold on to their past perceptions way too much. I think that they're like, this deck used to be good, therefore it must still be good. And also, we get the opposite issue, like we talked about many times about BT8 Blue Hybrid. Blue Hybrid was definitely getting downplayed in early BT8. It was still a good deck. It was still a great deck. But we just went, well, there's all these shiny new things. We should focus on them. We can leave the past behind. It felt like it was right before Blue Hybrid was going to get hit that we actually ended up seeing it get results in the English meta.
The Grim Reaper is calling. It is time for my aforementioned bathroom break.
Okay, well, you know what, actually? What I think we're going to say is thanks for listening, everybody. If you want to contact us, you can email us at erratasonata@podcast. erratasonatapodcast@gmail.com, or you can follow us at erratasonata on Twitter. You can leave us a comment or message or whatever, however you want to contact us through iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube. And we're going to go let Noah go pee. So, Julian, people have been clamoring. People have been crazy to hear your classic sign-off line.
My classic.
Your classic sign-off. So do you want to hit it with us with it?
I'll hit you with that. Thanks for listening, everyone. Errata Sayonara.